everyone, welcome back to Sheboy's podcast. Today's guest is Julie. Hi, Julie.
Hey, how are you doing today, Brooke? I'm excited to be here.
It's nice to have you here. Today we're talking about decluttering. So, can you tell our listeners what inspired you to create Reawaken Their Brilliance?
Well, I had been started my business and it was called Healing Through Organization. And I wanted to do something where got to make money, right? Got to pay all the bills, that I could make a difference in people's lives and do something that I enjoyed. And through the process, it became Reawaken Your Brilliance because I had this aha moment. I was with a client and she said, can we just talk? I went there to clear clutter and help her get organized. And I usually work in 4-hour blocks. And she immediately was like, can we just talk? And I said, you're the client. Absolutely. And we talked for 3 hours, kind of dug a little deeper what was going on, what was behind the clutter. And bam, in an hour, we were able to clear it out and do a lot more, I think, as if we had just kind of tried to do it. Let's move this, let's move that. And so that really was a huge inspiration. And then prior to my podcast, I did a show called Reawaken Your Brilliance where I interview body, mind, and spirit experts. And what I felt was that was kind of me going to school. Like, because when I talk to people, I'd say, well, use me as an example. And this is what's going on in my life. And so I got a lot of great coaching.
Oh, nice. So, with declutter, man, I have to hand it to you because my apartment is very cluttered. You would come in here and be like, "What?" Like I have animal stuff everywhere. Like I'm just like it's hard to get organized, especially when you're depressed. And people are trying to tell me to stop being depressed and clean. I'm like, how can you just snap out of it? How do you do that?
Well, clutter can cause depression and depression can cause clutter. So it can be this
Exactly.
cycle that you get stuck in. So you need to be gentle with yourself. And one thing, I don't judge anyone. I have my own faults. Why would I go in and judge your place? We all have our things that we struggle with. So whenever if you start clearing physical clutter, that's going to help your emotional state. That's going to help your depression, and vice versa. If you start working on clearing out your emotional and the depression, then you're going to be more motivated to clear out your space. So the inner reflects the outer and the outer reflects the inner. It's all related. So any step that you do is going to have a positive impact, inner or outer, no matter what it is you're doing.
Oh, I love that. That's what they was telling me at therapy. They was like, because I had someone come in and inspect my apartment to make sure it was safe because I was in the hospital for a while for suicide. And so they came and inspect my apartment and they was like, well, it's really messy in here and that could be some causing some of the depression. And I'm like, well, how do you snap out of it? How do you get yourself to wake up to declutter? Without help. Like I have to have people come over and help me to clean it in order for me to snap out of it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. And that's great. And what I'd say to you, if you can't have a pro come in, then friends and family who you trust that are non-judgmental. That's the big thing. Because the last thing you want is someone coming in being judgy McJudge face and
Yes.
saying all this stuff to you. So it's super important. I mean, but you can have pros that do it. I've had worked with people and they said, oh, they were professionals and judged me. And I was like, no, never. So don't judge yourself. Don't judge others, but get that support, get someone else in to help you. I mean, I think especially with depression, that's super important.
It really is because I did have family members to come in and help me, but that's exactly what they did. Exactly what you just said. Judge me. They're like, "Well, it's a shame that this messy," and I'm like, How do I get up to get out of it?" It's like they don't understand depression because they said they've never been depressed, so they don't understand what I'm going through. They
I don't
just look at it like ill.
I think a lot of people don't understand depression. I mean, I've suffered from it, so I completely get what's going on. And I think that you have a hereditary component. Like I know in my family, different people have had depression. So I think you have that biological component. And I think your environment adds to it as well. So that's why get some help, non-judgmental help in.
Yeah. So is that what inspired you to become a declutter coach? Was that?
It was after working with that client and seeing how just talking and digging deeper. Like the thing is, if you didn't know you were depressed, that's,
Mhm.
in my view, a huge piece that's missing. And so I always like to dig deeper. What's behind it? Because if we can kind of figure out the why and have a little more information, then we're more likely to succeed. Because
Right.
once we say, okay, it's depression. So what are ways that we can tackle depression as we're
Mhm.
doing the decluttering? So this
Yeah.
client, after that, I'm like, oh, you need to go get certified in coaching and learn more. And
Mhm.
I'm continually working on myself, trying to be the best version of me that I can be. And so what I learn and apply to myself, I bring with my clients.
Oh, okay. I love that. So, can we speak a little bit about your life coaching? How did you become a life coach? Like,
So I won't remember the exact title, but I did a lot of work with Lisa Transcendence Brown, who's now out in Hawaii, and her whole thing was kind of inner and outer and how they're all related. And so it was continual days of work and how can I be the better person and digging deeper. And it's like the oft used example of the layer of the onion, like keep peeling those layers back. And what is it about? Like a good example is maybe I'm angry today, but you know what? If I start to examine that a little bit, it's really I'm sad. Or maybe I'm afraid. It's not always our initial emotional response. And so that was the coaching program that I went through. And I love supporting people because clutter is a metaphor I use. And when you clear your clutter, you can create the life you choose, deserve, and desire. And I want to live in a world where people are passionate. They're doing what excites them, right? What if we lived in a world that was like that? We wouldn't have war, wouldn't have
mhm.
poverty because we'd want to support people. We would all be
Right.
equal. We wouldn't feel the
Yeah.
need to put someone down. We wouldn't judge them based on A, B, C, D. We'd live in a much
Mhm.
different world.
Yeah, that's the world I want to live in.
Yeah.
So, so can you explain eco green organizing? What is that?
Sure. So that's being sustainable. That's being green and organizing and decluttering. So, for example, when you're decluttering,
Mhm.
what can you recycle? What can
Oh.
you repurpose around your home to get organized, right? There are tons of stuff you probably already have sitting around that home. So instead of going to a big box store and buying a plastic container, how can
Mhm.
I get creative? Like using an old ice tree to keep your earrings in and keep them organized, or using a
Mm.
bulletin board to hang some of your necklaces up. I mean, there are tons of ways that you can get super creative and have fun and get organized. And it's knowing your recycling laws. What can I
Mhm.
go ahead and instead of just pitching it as junk? Or if I can't use it and it's still good, who can I donate it to? Like there are a lot of reuse stores where people who are artists and things can be super creative. Like we moved from North Carolina to West Virginia, but there was a great store near Raleigh in Durham, and like they'd have wallpaper books, and artists would take that and like wallpaper samples and come up with this really cool thing. So it's about reusing, can we get another use, all that good stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, nice. Ooh, I probably got a bunch of stuff around here that I can can like donate and organize. Yeah. So, so can you tell us a little bit about virtual coaching? What is that, and how do you go about that?
Sure. So that's just like what we're doing right now. I would work with someone virtually. I work with people all over the world. So it's no different. It's like we're sitting here together. We're just doing it over the internet. And that's the one good thing about Zoom. And I'm not a fan of social media many times, but other times it allows us to connect with like minded people that we might
Mhm.
otherwise not meet. So it's just coaching done via Zoom or Skype. I prefer Zoom, but that's a great thing. We're having a conversation and we're miles away, and you can do coaching that way too.
Oh, okay. Okay. Does a lot of people like that virtual coaching, or would they rather do the face to face?
That's a great question. I found virtual. Now, obviously, COVID has a huge part of that. But I think what's really important when you're looking to coach or if you're looking for a therapist, who do you connect with? Right? You
Yeah.
want someone that understands you, that's not going to judge you. And that's not always in our backyard. So,
Mhm.
virtually opens it up for everyone.
That's true. That's true. So, can you speak a little about podcast coaching? How does that work?
So it's about if you want to do a podcast, I can help you with that. I have almost 3 million downloads. I have been podcasting for a while, but I'm in the leisure category. I'm got on something called Chartable. I don't even think I signed up for it, but every week they tell me how I'm doing, and a lot of times I just delete it before looking. But I'm in the top 10 of podcasts downloaded in the leisure category, according to them, and I don't know how they get statistics. So I'm super passionate about helping people, and maybe they've done it for a while, but they're not getting people to listen. So what strategy can we come up with to get more listens and more views and all of that? So it's in, different aspects of it. Like, are you doing the right keywords? What are you doing on social media? How does your podcast sound? So different parts of it.
Ooh, I'm gonna go on there and look that up because because it's hard to find listeners for your podcast. Even with like, I've tried the keywords, but it's like I'm getting 2,000 every like few days, and I'm like, that's not a lot of listeners. I mean, it's good.
No, you're getting 2,000 downloads every couple days.
Well, I don't know if it's download or listeners. Like, I see where it says the eyeball and then it says 2,000. Like, that's all I see.
Oh, well, you know what? You need to stop a moment and congratulate yourself. That's pretty good. I want to say, and it's changed, but the average podcast maybe gets 100 downloads a month.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Like, it's not. Now, YouTube is going to be a different ball of wax, but I'm talking straight audio podcasts. It might have gone up for that. I don't think it's more than 200. Like, there are tons of podcasts, but tons. So, hold on a second. I think you're doing pretty well with that. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
I don't know. I'll let you see it after this, but I don't know. Like, I don't feel like it, but it may be. I'll just talk to you after this. But I do have a question. Can you explain like your workshops, like your presentation workshops and online organizing workshops?
Sure. So I love to do professional speaking. So for instance, I just talked to a bunch of employees on Monday. I'm going to talk to another employee group. I'm going to do an educator summit in a couple months from now. So what I like to talk about is supporting people in decluttering their life. It's not just the physical stuff. And I want people to get an expanded view of clutter. So for instance, the pile of paper on your desk isn't just a pile of clutter. It's preventing you from getting a job promotion. Or your closet that's stuffed to the gills is preventing a relationship from blossoming, or it's becoming a sticking point if you have a relationship. So just because if we're like, oh, it's just clutter, we can kind of dismiss it. But when we see what the real big issue is, then maybe I can, okay, I need to make some changes.
Right.
So I talk on a variety of topics. A lot popular seems to be how to declutter your life. So we talk about physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, health, relationships, finances, whatever it is, I relate it to clutter. And with the presentation I just did, we had over 500 people show up online live, and they said that was the most they'd had, and they had started a program like 6 months ago. So I was very excited about that.
Wow, that's cool. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
A lot of people. Wow. I feel like you should be on TED Talk whenever they start opening it back up. Like, you definitely need to be on there to speak about decluttering.
Well, that would be a dream come true. I'd have to figure out the closest TED and apply, I guess. I don't know much about that process.
Well, I've interviewed quite a few people that's been on TED Talk, and that can help you get a little bit of, like, get on there. And
oh, good.
Yeah. So I can definitely contact you after this and I'll speak to you about it.
Awesome.
So why should they hire a declutter? Like, why should my listeners hire a decluttering coach? Like, why?
Well, you feel stuck in life. You feel overwhelmed. It might be a question of awareness. We don't have, as a whole society, we don't have a lot of self-awareness. And all you have to do is pop on social media to see that people just lack it. It is what it is. And sometimes if people have awareness, they don't know what action they have to take. So awareness plus action equals change. So if you're stuck, we're going to figure out, what do we need to become more aware of? And then what action steps can we take to move forward?
I love that. I love it so much. I want to thank you so much, Julie, for coming on my podcast today and chatting with me.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for sharing your gifts with the world and your
You're like a circle that floats around me, keeping me safe and sound. And when I fall, you've tied a rope to me.